Hey, so I want to talk to you today about signs that you may have a mystical gift. And when I say mystical gift, I could be talking about psychic, medium, some sort of a sixth sense, strong intuition. Like, how do you know if that's what describes you? So let's break down mystical gifts a little bit. I hope that you can hear me okay. All right, let's break them down a little bit more. So we've got a fun one for me is psychometry, and that is the ability to feel energy through objects. We've got clairaudience, and that would be an ability to hear without necessarily using your ears. So you hear things, you know things without using your ears. Clairvoyance, that would be remote viewing, seeing auras, anything to do with maybe seeing things that aren't necessarily in your line of vision. Clairsentience, that is a feeling or a knowing that you can't explain where you got that from. It's like super strong intuition. How about precognition? And that is your ability to foretell a sequence of events or something that's going to happen down the road. Telepathy, you can read people's minds, you can hear their thoughts, you know what's going on in their head, which also allows you to be able to manipulate that a little bit. How about astral projection? And that is when you can actually project your spirit outside of your body. You can go and see things in other places. There's a whole lot of these things that can overlap. So you can actually your soul or your spirit can travel through a different realm and be able to see things that are happening in other places. What else do we have? How about empathy or being an empath? And that is, if you've found this video, you can probably relate to this. That is feeling energy, usually from other people, but not necessarily. You can feel energy in a space or environment from non-physical beings. You can feel it through animals, through nature. Empathy is just really picking up frequency, energy, and vibrations in the environment that you're in. So how do you know if you have these mystical gifts? You may be wondering, sometimes you feel like you do, and then you can't really tap into it again when you want to. It happens sometimes at the worst possible moments. So let me just say right away, I believe that every single being, every person has the ability to tap into what we now call a sixth sense or multiple senses. Some people aren't open to it and they block that energy. That doesn't happen for them. But there's other people like you and I that are like, I feel like this stuff is going on. And it's really awesome. So how can I harness this? But I want to break this down into the 10 top things that may show you that you absolutely have mystical gifts, okay? So the first one is that you've experienced a trauma or illness. Some of these gifts come to us when we are in a heightened state of emotion or healing through a heightened state of trauma or illness. A lot of people say, well, I wouldn't have chosen this path, but because of this path, I've been able to accept my gifts. So if that's you, number one, you've experienced some sort of trauma, accident, illness, that kind of thing, chances are pretty high that if you wanted to, you can tap into your own intuition. How about this one? Strangers tell you things, like their whole life story. You could be standing in the grocery store checkout, and the next thing you know, Bob behind you has confessed everything. He's told you about his love life. He's told you about his dog. He's told you about his mother neglecting him. If you seem to be that person who other people connect to and they share their life story with you, chances are you've got some mystical gifts. Number 3, You feel at home in nature. I always say that my farm is my church. And if you have a space outside, the beach, the forest, going for hikes, if you have a place in nature where you feel most connected to who you truly are, you might have a mystical gift. Number 4, you have a deep animal connection. Some of us surround ourselves with animals. I've got all kinds. But bigger than that, I can be out in nature and have a connection with animals. I can go anywhere that animals are and innately feel connected to them in a way that I don't necessarily feel connected to the humans that are in the same environment. If that describes you as well, you may have a mystical gift. Number 5, this one's fun. You freak yourself out sometimes. You know things that have no explanation. You are able to maybe foretell something that's going to happen. You know when the phone rings who it is before you look. You have dreams that are so real and vivid, and the next thing you know, they happen in real life. Any of those things where you may freak yourself out a little bit. You say things and you don't know why you've said them, and then afterwards you realize how much sense that made. If you find yourself freaking yourself out sometimes, you may have a mystical gift. Number 6, this applies to us empaths, and anybody who has a mystical gift is absolutely an empath because we feel energy. But number 6 is you feel heightened energy. You can tell if you walk into a space what's transpired before you enter that space. You can tell when you walk up to a group of 2 or more people what kind of mood they're in before you even look at them. You can feel that energy. Sometimes you can see it as auras, and the auras will change colors depending on the energy or the mood of the person that you're looking at. And it's not just people, it's animals, it's plants, it's all of that stuff. If you can feel a change in energy, you know when it's negative and toxic and you don't want to be there. You are drawn into those places where people feel really accepting and you know that you're like-minded with them. If you can feel that without words, without physical touch, we would describe you as an empath, and that is a very good sign that you have mystical gifts. Okay, here's an interesting one. Number 7, you find yourself on a balance beam of having introverted and extroverted energy. So there's times that you can be in a space and you get fuel and energy by hanging out with like-minded people, or you can jump up and perform and you find all of the energy that you need to be extremely extroverted in those situations. But completely balanced with that is the amount of time that you need to refuel and recharge. So you'd be very much introverted, ignoring phone calls or messages, vegging out in your bed or out in nature, getting lost in a book, doing stuff to refuel you that doesn't involve the energy of other people. So it's a balance, a complete balance of being extroverted and on, and then introverted and recharging. So it's not a shyness, because most of us with these gifts, although a lot of us lack confidence surrounding them, it's not so much a shyness, it's just we need to step back and recharge. So if you find yourself in that position where you're completely balanced or sometimes out of whack, but you're a measure of balanced energy between introverted and extroverted, you may have a mystical gift. All right, number 8. You are often a shoulder, a source of advice, called a healer. People come to you, unload on you. They come to you to feel better. If you find yourself in those positions often where you are helping somebody else through a certain situation, whether it's a physical healing, whether it's an exchange of energy, whether it's somebody that's coming to you because you just seem to have all the right answers, or somebody just wants to unload on you and know that you're not judgmental, you're very open-minded. If you find yourself being that person for others, you may have mystical gifts. Number 9, How about being a lifelong student? You are fascinated by the unexplained. So it could be things like ESP. It could be things like aliens. It could be things like crystals and energy. It could be things like ghosts or apparitions. If you find yourself drawn into mysteries, to paranormal activity, to anything that's unexplained, and you find yourself a lifelong student, you gather information, you source from it what you need to make sense in your own head, but you're always drawn back into those things that don't have a very scientific explanation. Like, why is this stuff happening? If you find yourself drawn to the unexplained, you may have a mystical gift. And number 10, this one's kind of fun. You don't love rules and authority. Not that you can't follow rules and authority, but you have this sense where you're always questioning why. Like, why are you trying to confine me? What is it that I need to know so I understand your motivation between what you're trying to get accomplished and why I have to be limited? If you can get an explanation that makes sense, you are absolutely 100% okay with dealing with rules and authority. If it's something that it's a power trip from somebody else, you are completely turned off by that and you lose all respect for somebody in that capacity. So the funny thing is that although we seem to abhor rules and authority, we're also very ritualistic. Like, we're stuck in our ways. We may be somewhat superstitious or have to have things follow a certain pattern. Very ritualistic in our own activities because they make sense to us, because we've had good things happen, because that way we don't forget anything. But if somebody is just going to drop some rules and authority on you without giving you an explanation, you don't deal very well. So sometimes you may not make a great employee. Sometimes you may find yourself being, I don't know, like acting out in insubordination because somebody's on a power trip and that's just not flying with you. If that describes you, you may have a mystical gift. So now what? If those signs that I've given you, those 10 ways that you can kind of figure out if that applies to you, what do you do now? What do you do with that information? If you're like, yeah, do you know what? I can probably check most of those things off my list. What do you do? So you'll find out of all of the different gifts that I was only scratching the surface there, but those different gifts, empathy, psychometry, clairvoyance, precognition, telepathy, what else? Astral projection, any of that stuff. You'll find that one of those is way stronger for you than the others. And a lot of them will overlap. But what do you do now? How do you tap into that? What's your purpose for having this? So let me just say, first of all, it's bigger than just you. If you are able to tap into this, it's almost like we have a duty to do something with this, and not necessarily a selfish thing, but how do we serve the most amount of people with the gift that we have? Because there are far more people that need the gifts from a mystic than there are people who are serving that. So it may be that you're into business and your ability to understand where somebody's coming from could help both parties. So if you have the gift of telepathy, for instance, and you are able to understand the motivation behind somebody's thinking and why they're thinking and exactly what they're thinking, and you're in the business and trying to solve their problems, then they don't even have to tell you what their problem is, and you can approach them with a solution. So it's win-win, right? You can fix something for somebody, they can have something fixed. How about if you are a nurse? you're a nurse and you are able to, which one can we do? Okay, so how about, nurses generally are empathetic beings and that's why they're there. But if you have empathy and you are surrounded by somebody who is in need of care and your job is to care for them, and you can feel what their energy is telling you, then you know the exact thing that needs to be done to change the way that they're feeling into a different state. Somebody who is a dog trainer, if you can learn how to communicate with pets through telepathy, through empathetic feelings, if you can relate to them, and you're a dog trainer, you understand not just by their body language, but by their actual thoughts. You know how to make them feel safe in certain situations. You know how to ask them so that they understand what you're saying. There are so many ways that we can take these gifts, these mystical gifts that we have, this sixth sense, this intuition, and use it in our everyday lives or our jobs or our careers. And then there are people who turn these gifts into a career. So what is it that you want to do with this? And how is it that you can tune in, you can fine tune this thing in order to be the best that you can be with this gift that you have? A lot of times we lack confidence. A lot of times people with mystical gifts have found themselves in a relationship. It might be an intimate relationship. It may be in the family. It may be career related. You've found yourself lacking confidence because there's somebody who is judgmental. You're in a relationship where somebody acts really condescending, or somebody just kind of brushes you off. So we tend to lose our confidence there. So what you need to do now is find a group of like-minded people. If you can find a teacher or a mentor, if you can find books, if you can find some sort of community to immerse yourself in so that you get the confidence and the strength to be able to dig a little bit deeper into these gifts, that would be your first step. You have to accept that you have these things and then figure out how to use them best. What if this was your mission? What if this was your purpose here? To be able to use these gifts, these unexplained things, in order to make life easier for somebody else. What if this is your purpose? You have to serve this from your heart. So we need to accept it. We need to gain confidence. We need to build communities around us. We need to find teachers and mentors, and then figure out how we can serve this best. I know that's a lot. That is a lot on your plate for what you're supposed to do next. But if I've tapped into this and you see yourself in any of those 10 signs, you can connect with me. You can leave me a message. You can reach out to me. I can be a mentor. I can be part of your community. We can build this together. All right, I want you guys to take care and go serve from your heart.